Every bloodline cursed with the beast began here. The message came in different ways, scratched onto a bathroom mirror, scrawled on a page torn from an old field journal, whispered from a static-laced voicemail that ended with a growl. But the wording was always the same: return to the circle, or your bloodline ends. None of them had spoken in years. Not since the last body dropped. Not since the last howl echoed into the trees and left behind silence and scars. But now, they were coming back. First to arrive was Rhea. Her hair was shorter now, streaked with white that hadn't been there a year ago. Her left arm still trembled from that bite she never fully recovered from. She stepped out of the tree line into the clearing at the edge of silver pines, boots sinking slightly in the soft moss. The circle awaited massive stones, half sunk into earth, slick with old moss and blood memory. They hadn't aged. Not 1 inch. Next was Devon. Truck still running, hazards blinking against the trees like a heartbeat. He walked with a limp, dragging one leg like it still remembered the night had twisted into something else. He clutched a flask in one hand, a silver charm in the other. When he saw Rhea, he stopped short. No words, just a nod. That was enough. Now Maya came later, quiet, older. She carried a child's shoe in her coat pocket. The one she found in the woods years ago, the one she never explained. Her gaze locked onto the center of the circle, and something in her chest shifted, like a bone moving without consent. They didn't ask who sent the message. They already knew. The Watcher. They say it was here beneath this circle, before this town ever had a name, that the first howl was heard. No human mouth made it, no wolf either, something in between. Something eternal. As the survivors approached the stones, they noticed it at once. Each step forward caused the ground to pulse faintly, like the earth was breathing them in. Beneath their feet, tiny symbols curved, claw-like, began to glow, dimly in the moss. Ancient sigils, matching none of their past experiences, yet somehow familiar. Do you remember what you were the night it took you? It does. They circled each other, standing far enough apart to remain strangers, close enough to feel like the beginning of a ritual. No one dared to stand in the center, not yet. This is a trap, Devon muttered, first to break the silence. A sick invitation. Something's still here. Rhea didn't answer. She was staring at her hands. Her fingertips had begun to ache, burn even. She pulled off her glove. The same sigil from the moss was now etched faintly into her palm, like it had always been there, waiting for the moonlight to reveal it. Maya backed away, pulling her coat tighter. We should have stayed away. We should have burned this place when we had the chance. No, Rhea said. It would have just risen somewhere else. This place doesn't die, it waits. The clouds parted. The full moon emerged, hanging low and hungry. The ground beneath, the center stone cracked open with a slow, wet groan. Would you face the thing that remembers your darkest hour? The Watcher had awakened. If the curse started in your bloodline, would you come back to where it was born? Comment below before the moon rises again. It marks those who return, not out of mercy, but memory. The stone circle didn't just remember them, it began speaking. Not in words, not yet, but in signs. Devon was the first to hear it. A rustling in the trees, too rhythmic to be the wind. Footsteps, 4 legs circling just outside the reach of the clearing. He turned, flask clenched in his hand like it could scare off what was already inside his veins. Something's out there, he muttered. Rhea didn't reply. She was too busy watching the stones breathe. Yes, breathed. The mist curled between the standing stones like it was being exhaled. The sigils on the moss pulsed in sync, as though the earth was sinking to heartbeats, to memories, to guilt. Maya stepped closer to the largest stone, the one they used to call the Eye. When she touched it, a ripple of moonlight slid across its surface, and her eyes widened. It's showing me, she whispered. What? Rhea asked her. And just like that, Maya was back to the night her sister vanished. The night she'd locked the door behind her and never opened it again. She saw it play out across the stone like a reflection in dark water. But the face that stood outside her childhood home wasn't her sister anymore. It was something with silver eyes and teeth too, wide for a human mouth. The stone was showing each of them their turning point. The moment their hands slipped, their trust broke, their bloodlines were marked. Rhea pulled up her sleeve. The glowing sigil had spread. It wasn't just a glyph anymore, it was a pattern, crawling up her arm like a vine, each twist familiar. It was her family crest. This is punishment, she said, for surviving. Devon scoffed. Don't give it that much credit. This thing's not justice, it's a collector. From the fog came a sound, not a growl, not quite a voice, something in between. A wet inhale, like something savoring a memory. They weren't alone, but it wasn't the Watcher yet. No, this was Something smaller, something sniffing at the trail of guilt. Snap. A twig broke in the darkness. Skitter. Claws on bark. Too fast to see, but they knew the sound. Packlings. Little remnants. Shreds of past, transformations half-formed, malformed, maybe once human or not. Devon took a step back, but the sigil on his hand flared. The ground beneath his foot cracked slightly. Something in the dirt shifted. "It's reacting to us," he said, voice shaking. The stones weren't just markers, they were keys, markers of the pact each bloodline had made. Maya knelt in front of a smaller stone, half buried and forgotten. On its surface she saw a Pfizer younger version of herself, smiling, innocent, before the first howl. And beside that face, her mother's tears welled in her eyes. She was the one who started it, Maya whispered. She was the first. The curse wasn't random. The Watcher marked lineages that had chosen betrayal. Even if it came wrapped in love, would you forgive someone who vanished, covered in blood? Rhea turned away, wiping her eyes. "I came back to stop this, not to drown in it again." But even as she spoke, the fog curled around her ankle, clinging, like fingers, from the edge of the trees. Something finally emerged, low shape, pale, moving on all fours, eyes like rotted pearls. It didn't lunge, it watched, and it was laughing. No sound, just the horrible shape of a mouth stretched into memory. Drop it below if your blood remembers something it shouldn't. Some transformations begin with a bite, others with guilt. The Watcher wasn't hunting them, not yet. It was waiting for them to break themselves, and one by one they began to crack. It started with Devon. He hadn't slept in days, maybe weeks. The flask in his pocket had stopped helping. Liquor doesn't burn away what's stitched into your marrow. His leg, the one that limped since Moon Hollow, began to itch, deep itch, the kind you can't scratch without peeling something away. He leaned against one of the stones, breathing hard, sweat dripping down his neck. But when he looked down at his hand, his fingernails were gone, not broken, absorbed. That the skin at the tip of each finger had turned leathery, black-veined, pulsing slightly. He clenched his fist and something shifted inside his palm, like bones grinding into a new shape. "It's happening again," he gasped. Rhea turned to him just in time to see his wrist elongate by an inch, the joints warping, tendons popping like guitar strings. "Fight it," she shouted. "It's not full," he said. "The moon, it's not even full yet." "It's not the moon," Maya cut in quietly. "It's the circle." Maya's transformation was quieter, no claws, no howls, just tears. As she stood at the edge of the stone circle, the fog curling around her like a shawl, she saw the child again. Not a memory this time. A little girl in a faded yellow dress, bare feet, wolf-like gait, eyes too bright for this world. Her sister. But when Maya moved toward her, she realized the girl wasn't breathing. She was repeating something, over and over. Lips moving, no sound. Maya took a step closer. The words clicked into focus. "You locked the door, you locked the door, you locked the door." Maya fell to her knees. The girl stepped backward, slowly folding into the mist, and where her shadow had been, the stone beneath began to glow, not just one glyph, a spiral of them, etched into the earth, winding toward Maya's feet, wrapping around her calves. She didn't scream when her skin split at the ankle, didn't flinch when coarse fur began to emerge, didn't move when her teeth began pushing forward inside her mouth. She just whispered, "I'm sorry." Meanwhile, Rhea was running. She couldn't take it. Not again. The stone circled the faces, the symbols, the slow pull toward a truth they were never meant to survive. She sprinted into the trees. Branches clawed at her coat. Her vision blurred. Her breath caught halfway in her throat, like it had forgotten how lungs worked. The trees around her weren't trees anymore. They were antlers, rows of towering, skeletal antlers, etched with the Watcher's mark. The woods had warped, or her mind had. Each branch whispered a name she'd buried. Each name came with a face. Each face came with teeth. Rhea stumbled into a clearing and there it was, a mirror, shattered, hanging from an old tree, not glass, something older, polished, bone. She looked into it and saw herself, but not her. The eyes were wrong, red, clouded, still wet from a kill. Some secrets don't stay buried. Some secrets claw their way back out. Rhea fell to the ground. The veins on her neck bulged, like twisted cables. Her jaw locked. And then came the noise, not a scream, not a growl, something in between, half grief, half surrender. Back at the circle, Devon dropped to his knees. He opened his wallet, took out a photo, his son, 8 years old, smiling with missing teeth, a drawing of a dog behind him that was never actually there. Devon gripped the photo as the claws burst through his knuckles. Tears streamed down his face. I made it home to him, he whispered. I made it back. But the curse didn't care about journeys, only debt. Maya stood in the center now. The fog had parted. The stones glowed red. And from the far edge, something enormous moved. Not fast, not aggressive, ceremonial, ancient, a presence. More than a shape. The Watcher had risen, but it wasn't just here to hunt, it was here to judge. If your past ever reached through the fog and grabbed you, share this, before it does again. The truth isn't hidden in shadow, it's etched in blood. The moon rose higher, and the fog began to burn away, not from heat, but from knowledge. Knowledge hurts more than fire. The survivors, what was left of them, stood inside the circle now, not by choice. Each step had been guided, not forced, pulled by guilt, by memory, by the ancient weight of their own blood. The stones no longer stood still. They rotated slowly, grinding into the earth like the gears of a ritual clock, as if they had waited millennia to turn just once more. Glyphs ignited across their skin. Not ink, not burn, something deeper, blood-etched. Rhea clutched her arm where the mark coiled around her veins. Devon had dropped the photos. His claws trembled. Maya stood still, almost reverent, as the Watcher emerged from the fog, and there it was. The thing that watched them even when they were alone. The thing that had been there when the first howl ever echoed across the earth. The Watcher. It did not move like a beast. It moved like a dream, like the memory of a predator. Its fur shimmered in hues of smoke and iron. Its eyes were mirrors, but not of the present. Each glance showed the moment someone turned. Its mouth never moved, but its voice filled the clearing. You are the echoes of betrayal. Each curse past was earned. Each howl, a confession. Rhea dropped to her knees. We didn't choose this. The Watcher turned its massive head toward her. Did your ancestor choose mercy? A flash, vision behind her eyes. A woman hundreds of years ago, standing in the same circle, holding a silver dagger. She hesitates. The pack needed a sacrifice, but she couldn't go through with it. Instead, she ran, and with her cowardice, the curse rippled forward, down her bloodline. Into Rhea. Devon was next. He gritted his fangs. His eyes were beginning to glow, his back hunched, fighting the shift. The Watcher turned its gaze. Seen a man in uniform during wartime, guarding a convoy through a winter forest. He hears a sound. He fires into the dark hand, hits something that wasn't the enemy. A traveler, a werewolf, mid-transition, a father. The body is buried, the paperwork forged. But the guilt lived on through generations. To Devon, Maya didn't flinch. Show me, she said. And it did. She saw her grandmother, young, beautiful, bleeding beside a stone like these, giving birth in the middle of a ritual. But midwife's hands were trembling. The villagers were afraid. The baby didn't cry, it howled. You are not victims, said the Watcher. You are heirs. You return to the stone, not for absolution, but to feed the circle again. That's when they saw it, the sigil spiral. In the center of the clearing, where moss had peeled back and old bones shimmered under the soil, the glyphs formed a living spiral, and at the center a single stone with fresh blood on it. Someone had already bled here, Maya asked. The Watcher did not answer, but all three of them looked at each other. No, one confessed. No one had to, because the stones were glowing now, choosing double quotes. Would you betray one to save many? You've done it before. A long pause. Then the Watcher said, one must remain. One must offer flesh. One must carry the howl. Rhea stepped forward. I'll do it. Devon growled, half-shifted now, eyes swimming in yellow. No, you've paid your debt. Maya looked to the sky. This was never about payment. It's about continuation. The Watcher opened its mouth inside a reflection. Each of them saw their own final form, the one they would become if they stayed, if they accepted the curse fully. The one who remained would become the next Watcher. If you had to choose, become the beast, or feed it someone else, what would you do? Comment below. Blood remembers, even when we try to forget. The silence inside the circle was suffocating. The Watcher had spoken its decree. 3 survivors, 3 paths. One must remain, one must offer flesh, one must carry the howl. And then it waited, cause it already knew who would break first. Devon snarled. The claws had fully emerged now, twisting from his knuckles, soaked with his own blood. His teeth ached inside his mouth, his spine arching, muscles twitching like harp strings played by a shaking hand. You want sacrifice? He spat. You'll get it. He charged. Toward Maya. Rhea moved instinctively, a blur of fog and instinct. She tackled Devon mid-lunge, and the two crashed against the nearest standing stone, moss flying, glyphs pulsing like heartbeats. Devon's snarl was no longer human, that it was the sound of a man too tired to fight his curse, too broken to care, who bled. Maya didn't run. She watched them writhe and thrash in the dirt like wolves in a trap. The Watcher didn't move either. Its eyes glowed brighter, reflecting their violence. This was part of the ritual. It always had been. The blood must be given. It whispered into the wind, or it must be taken. Devon's shift accelerated. His legs cracked into the hind lean of a predator. His arms bulged with sinew and rage. His face tore open at the cheek's jaw, unhinging. Tongue split. The circle demanded violence, and it would get it. Rhea screamed, in fear. But in fury, you think feeding it more death will end it. She slammed her hand onto the center stone. Blood spilled from her palm. The glyph flared red-hot. The Watcher looked at her for the first time, not through visions or memory, but truly. It tilted its massive head. A low growl rumbled through the earth. You offer yourself. Devon, half off now, staggered toward her. Move, he growled. You're not taking anyone else. Rhea snapped, but Devon didn't want to take someone. He wanted the Watcher's eyes off him. He wanted to be forgotten. You don't get it, he said, teeth slurred with spit and blood. If I die here, if I feed it, maybe my son doesn't have to. And that's when Maya moved. She didn't shout, she didn't warn. She stepped between them and plunged a shard of obsidian, broken from one of the stones, into Devon's side. He howled, not in pain, not in understanding. His eyes locked with hers. Thank you. And then the transformation finished. His skin split completely. His bones shrank and twisted. His final scream became a full-bodied howl that shook the circle. And then silence. The Watcher stepped forward. It did not eat. It absorbed. Devon's broken body crumbled into black ash and floated up, becoming mist, becoming part of the fog. Again, part of the memory, part of the curse. The stones pulsed. One glyph dimmed, two remained lit. Rhea collapsed to her knees. He was chosen, Maya corrected. If you've heard the howl, subscribe. You're already marked. One death, one delay. But the curse never ends, it only waits. Every curse survives by memory, but it evolves through choice. Devon was gone, no body, no bones, only the echo of his howl swirling in the mist like an unfinished sentence. Maya still held the obsidian shard, its tip crusted with cooling blood. Rhea knelt beside the central stone, her hands glowing faintly with the mark, the same sigil that had appeared in her dreams for years, unclaimed until now. Above them, the moon darkened, the red hue deepened. The blood moon was reaching fullness. Time was short. The Watcher took another step forward. Its massive form didn't ripple the grass. It displaced the world around it where it stood. Reality bent. Fog leaned toward it like gravity. The stones trembled, not from fear, but from recognition. One howl remains, it said. One must carry the memory forward. The curse cannot be destroyed, only maintained. Who stays? Maya and Rhea looked at each other, and something unspoken passed between them. Not just grief, not just duty, inheritance. Maya stepped forward first. My sister died for this. My mother bled for this. Let it end with me. The Watcher lowered its head, eyes shimmering with faint approval, but then a howl in the distance. Not from the circle, from beyond. A child's howl, thin, young. Too familiar. Rhea turned her head. That can't be. She ran toward the edge of the clearing, and there, standing just beyond the stones, a girl. No. Older than 9, barefoot. Eyes glowing softly. She looked up at Rhea and whispered, "You promised you'd stop it." Rhea froze. I don't know you. But she did. Not by name. Not by blood. By consequence. This child was born of the curse, not infected. Inherited. A delayed payment. The Watcher spoke. You cannot kill what was never born whole, only rebind it. Maya's hand dropped a shard. She stepped back. It's not me, she said. It was never me. Rhea stepped forward, slowly, eyes locked with the Watcher, breathing steady. I was the one who ran when the circle first called. I thought I could live without it, but it never stopped following me. She turned to Maya, who nodded. And then to the girl. This isn't your curse to carry. She knelt in the center of the glyph spiral. The stones stopped rotating. The spiral locked into place. The sigils across her body flared, and the Watcher moved toward her, slow, deliberate. Its eyes mirrored her, back at her, not the monster, not the survivor, the successor. Will you remember? The Watcher asked. Will you watch? Rhea exhaled once. I already have. The moment her hand touched the central glyph, she disappeared. Not into ash. Not into fog. Into the stones. They absorbed her like breath. Her voice lingered like wind passing through cave walls. The sigils stopped glowing. The moon dimmed. The circle was whole again. The curse delayed. Maya turned back toward the trees. The girl was gone. The forest was silent. The Watcher was no longer visible. But Maya didn't look back because she knew someone else was watching now. one howl, one chance. She made the right choice. For now, like, share, and subscribe, because next time, the howl may come for your street. The howl is gone, but the silence it leaves behind is worse. Dawn did not break. It leaked, a thin, blue-gray smear across the sky, like the world wasn't ready to light this place just yet. The circle sat still once more, stones unmoving, glyphs dimmed. The grass no longer pulsed. The air was quiet, too quiet. No birds, no wind, no trace of the watcher, no trace of Rhea. Maya stood alone now, outside the ring of stones. She turned one last time, and for just a moment, only a flicker, she saw her. Rhea. Not in her body. In her shadow. Tall, still eyes, glowing faintly where no eyes should be. Watching, then gone. Maya reached into her pocket. She pulled out the little shoe. Her sister's. She hadn't told the others what really happened, that she found it on the altar the day after she vanished, that she knew then the curse wasn't over, it was just waiting for the next name. She walked away from the stones. Fog curled behind her, polite now. Not chasing. Not whispering. Only watching, and deep beneath the stones. In the earth, Rhea had joined a heartbeat once, twice, then silence again. Back in town, across radios and flickering televisions, old stories began to resurface. Lost hikers, dead, livestock, a howl heard somewhere near High Ridge, just once. But that's how it always starts. It ended here, until someone opens the circle again. Like, share, and subscribe, because next time, the howl may come for your street, and if you hear it, don't look out the window. And for those who hunger for more, step deeper into the shadows with our ultimate werewolf horror playlist linked in the description below. In the world of horror, the scariest things happen when you least expect them, and trust me, you don't want to be left in the dark. Welcome to the darkness.